What's up, friends? We are back and we are working on our auto documentation generator. And what you see on the screen here is what we're going to do or what we're going to end up with, rather, after we add some CSS to what we created in our last video about rolling our own auto documentation generator. You can see this is a much improved version. It's got table of contents sidebar, a little bit of styling, and the content. Structure's exactly the same. Nothing's going to change there. The only thing we're really going to change is the styling, and we'll write a function to make these names over here a little bit prettier than they were. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's refresh and get back to our, first I gotta resave this, get back to what it was. Okay, so as you guys recall from last video, this is what it looks like. Not the prettiest. We've got, obviously, because we're doing a very file-based system here, it's showing you the folders and everything else, which is good. In some respects, you can customize this any way you want. I like having back references to where things come from. So if I'm documenting something or, writing code, I hate trying to find where the code exists. So that's another benefit for me for writing something like this, where it's like, oh, hey, if I click classes router PHP, I know where that file is, where this code is being documented. So yeah, but this, where we're just trying to show basic documentation, getting started, set up, stuff like that, we created a folder called _docs. That way it would sort to the top. And I've just got to set up. I'm just kind of playing around with stuff right now. We really don't need this extra stuff here, so we'll do a little bit of work to make that a little prettier as well. In fact, let's do that first. We're going to create a function, and we'll insert it right here because I like to try to be logical in the order of things. And we're going to call this beautify name, and we'll throw in the doc. And of course, we're going to return $doc. And we're just going to do some string replacement. Nothing fancy. Stir replace. We'll get rid of we'll change the underscores into spaces. I'm going to go ahead and copy this line to speed things up a little bit. And I'm going to take the .md and just get rid of that altogether. And I think I'm going to go ahead and remove the first front slash of the docs. Well, let's just start here for now. So we got to come up here where we're generating our table of contents, and we'll have to go into where we're generating the docs as well. But for now, we'll start with the contents. All right, so we'll do $title equals beautify name $doc. And instead of regurgitating the $doc in the title, we will use the title. Let's save that and make sure that's working. Okay, good. Yep, we've got our little bit prettier now. So because I've decided I want to put this in a docs folder, and anything inside the docs folder, I really don't need that displayed in here. I am going to go ahead and string replace that out as well. So let's do that. And we'll just do underscore docs slash and replace it with nothing. Cool. All right, so we've got that taken care of. Now we just got to fix it in our documentation generator, which is very simple. We'll do exactly the same thing. We'll go ahead and copy this, bring it down, And instead of $doc in the actual title, we'll use the title. Save and refresh. Cool. All right, so that's already starting to look a little better. That's basically it for functional changes. We're now just going to go straight into CSS and show how we can turn it into what you guys saw at the beginning of this video. So let's do that. All right, we've got a little bit of CSS for our button and our section. And I'm going to start with just adding the rules that we're going to be writing, or the selectors that we're going to be writing rules for, rather. So this one I'm going to go ahead and just write right now because I like to do this for really largely everything that I do. This is more of a personal preference. You guys can do this however you want. I like using box sizing border box because it helps me when I'm sizing things. For me, it's a little more intuitive for sizing, margins and padding and borders and whatnot. The size of the box will end up being the size that you set if you're setting width and height or whatever. And it will include margins and padding and borders and all of that. I might be saying that wrong. If you guys correct me in the comments, I'm fine with that. All right, so we're going to have a rule for the body. We're going to have a rule for a table. And the reason we're going to have some rules for tables is because you'll see in our... We'll go down to classes router here. This is actually a table, and it doesn't have borders. So we do need to add a little bit of styling for our markdown in our tables. You can see here we're doing markdown tables for this. I didn't really tab it out and make it all that pretty, but you guys get the point. But I like, some nice thin borders, so we're going to do some styling for that. So tables, and then we will need the headers and the cells as well. And then we're going to style a header, which we don't have yet, but we will. So I am going to have to add a little bit of markup to make this work. And the header will contain the H1, which is just the title right now that says docs. You'll see what I mean here. And actually, let's go ahead and fix that right now while we're talking about it. So all I'm going to do is create a header. And I'm going to wrap this section in that header. So that's it. And the reason why I want to wrap this in a header will become apparent when we start doing the grid. We're going to use grid to get those elements placed where we want them. So we'll have our header on the top, and then we'll have our sidebar and our content. And we're going to use CSS grids for that. Okay, so that's that header. And then, of course, we'll need to style our table of contents a little bit. We'll need to style our my-docs. And we will end up with a little bit of CSS that applies to both. So that's what this is all about. Table of contents, comma, my-docs. All right, and that's the selectors we're going to start with here. In fact, that's all of the selectors we're going to use today. And now it's just a matter of writing some rules. So we'll save, refresh. The first thing I want to do, so now we've got our header. I want to change this font. I really don't like the default font, and we're going to just use web-friendly fonts. Web fonts are gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. I love web fonts. But for performance reasons, you get a lot more bang for your buck just using web fonts that are built into the devices. And sans serif is a fantastic font family. Again, this is preference. You guys can use whatever you want. So we'll do that. Check it out. And I already like it a lot more. And I could just stop right here. That's it. That's all you need to change. Just change the font. It looks better. Just kidding, guys. Come on. So let's get started with the grid. Let's get these sections where we want them to be. So first we're going to take that whole body and we're going to display grid. We're going to do some grid template areas. And I'm not going to go into too much of a tutorial mode on grids. There's lots and lots of tutorials out there on grids. I highly recommend you guys check it out. Grids are awesome. So is Flexbox, but between the two of them, I'm kind of leaning toward grids right now. I've used both, but and I like both, but right now I'm leaning on grids. Header, that'll be our top row, and then sidebar docs, and then we will do grid template rows. And so for the top row, I just want 50 pixels and then one fraction, which we'll end up just, well, you'll see here how we're gonna utilize that when we get to it, that fraction. And then the grid template columns, I want a 300 pixel wide sidebar, and then the rest of it to fill the screen. All right, and I'm going to take the margin out of the body. I like to be in control of my margins and paddings, so I take that out of the body. I hit save, and this really isn't going to change much yet, obviously. Yeah, actually it kind of ruins a lot of things. I wonder why it does that. That's kind of silly. Yeah, that's weird. Well, obviously, we've got more work to do. We're going to skip the table and the TH and TD for now. Let's go right into the header and get that where we want it. We're going to do grid area header, and then come down to the table of contents, and we'll do the same thing, grid area sidebar, and then of course in the my docs grid area colon what do we call it? Docs. All right, that should fix that. There we go. That looks more like it. Cool. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is we're getting our sections or areas set up where we want them to be, which is good. What should we do next? What's the next thing we should work on? Let's do the overflow here, because you'll see that we are still scrolling the entire page, and I want to just scroll the docs, the content here. And actually, before we do that, I'm going to fix the H1 margins here, and that's what this rule is all about. I'm just going to do margin colon 10 pixels. And I'll just fix that a little bit. Yeah, that looks a little better. Okay. Okay, now let's work on this overflow issue. And this is where this shared rule is going to be. So for both the sidebar and the docs, I would like to have a max height that'll fill the rest of the window. And the way I do this, and I'm totally welcome to alternatives, so please comment if you have better ways to do this or ways in which you prefer. I like to use calc. Might not be the most cross-browser compliant, but you know, it's 2020. We're getting there. Minus 52 pixels. Now, I could do 50 pixels and that's fine. I like to do 52 pixels just to give it just a little extra space there at the bottom, so it doesn't end up with two scroll bars is what it would amount to if a browser decided to render that extra couple of pixels below. Anyhow, max height, and then of course overflow Y, and this will apply to both of these elements auto. So if either one of them have overflowing content, they'll each get their own scroll bar. Save. And in this case, you can see the only one that has overflowing content is the docs. So there we go. That's scrolling and looking just the way I want it. Nice. What else is there? We've got, so it's not as pretty yet as what we showed you guys at the beginning. And really what it boils down to now is just color and maybe a little bit of shadowing. So let's do that. Let's set our whole body background color. just to get a starting point. And I've already pre-selected these colors. Obviously you guys can use whatever colors you want. I kind of like the simple look of shades of gray. And no, that's not a reference to the book. Background color for body. And then I know I want my table of contents to have a little bit of a darker color. Background color, colon, hashtag C5C5C5, colon. Yeah. I'm also going to add a little bit of padding too, just to bring those in a little bit, because now that I've gotten rid of some margin, that's going to be hard pressed up against the edges of the window. So we'll save that. All right, it's starting to look a little more like what I had shown you guys in the beginning. Getting closer. The other thing is I'm going to add some padding to this too. In fact, that's a rule that I probably could put in. Nope, it's a different rule. So I'm going to add some padding to this slightly differently. And you'll see why I want to do this in a minute. So padding for my docs is 10 pixels, and then 200 pixels at the bottom. And the reason I like to do this is so that when you scroll to the bottom, I hate it when it just ends right there hard at the very last line of text, because it just feels like it's supposed to scroll a little more, like maybe there's more content. Whereas if you add some padding, some blank space, when you scroll to the bottom, wrong button, refresh. So when you scroll to the bottom, you get to the bottom, you're like, oh, okay, it's blank. There's nothing left. We've reached the end. I don't know why I feel like that. Maybe that's just another neurotic thing that I have. But again, it's CSS. You guys can do this however you want. I'm showing you how I am going to do it for myself. So there's that. The next thing we'll do is we're going to color the header. And I want to do a little bit darker theme on the header. So I'm going to also change the font, the foreground color. And that would be color hashtag B5B5B5. And then background color colon 3838. Hashtag 383838. Yeah. That's correct. Cool. Save and refresh so you guys can see. And yeah, there we go. So you'll notice it's still not quite as cool as what we showed at the very beginning. Maybe some of you were astute enough to notice that I had applied some shadows, box shadows. So let's do that. And it really, I find box shadows help just make things pop a little more. So you can see this is very flat, which honestly, some people love this look. It actually looks pretty good just like that. You could totally stop here and be done with it. But I'm going to go one tiny little extra step further and add some box shadowing. The first one we're going to do is the sidebar. So we'll do box shadow. And the way this is, I believe it's X offset, Y offset, and then blur distance, and then spread. And I'm going to go -5 pixels on the spread because I want it. Well, let me show you what it does if we don't. All right, so we'll do 0 pixels, and I'm going to do black. So we'll save. We'll see. Oh, and I want inset. I want inset on this one. So inset is a keyword that we'll put right there. Refresh. Okay. So you see we're getting this borders around here when really I just want the borders along that right edge. And we'll go ahead and inspect here so you can see what happens when we start taking that spread down. So I'm going to start tapping the arrow key. What is going on? Why is this not working the way? Oh, I have this messed up a little bit. Sorry, guys. Let's go back into our rules and change this to the correct box shadow, because that was the box shadow rules that I'm mixing two of them up, to be honest with you. All right, so -6 pixels in the X, 0 pixels in the Y, and I only really want 10, we'll do 7 pixels of blur. Save, come back. Okay, now, so this is actually doing more of what I want it to do, but I don't want it quite that thick, and that's where the spread comes in. So I've offset it so that it's over in the direction that I want it to be. But it's just too much, it's too thick for what I want. So that's where setting a negative spread, you know, in this case, you know, we can do -6. You guys can play around with that. I think I'm going to go -6. Just a touch, right? Subtle. Styling can be very dramatic with very small changes and largely imperceptible to the user, but it just, the impression that you get overall from little subtle details like that can really make a website pop. Okay, so that's why we're doing a negative spread, so on and so forth. And I love Chrome because actually if you go into this, you can click on this and play around. If I can click on it. They've got this cool little thing that you could use to play around with the offset and the blur and the spread and everything else, whether you want to inset or outset. I love Chrome. I love Chrome. It lets you play around with this stuff. Anyhow, moving on. I'm talking a lot. I need to not talk so much. -6 pixels black. Save. Refresh. And there, we've got just our tiniest little bit of shadow there. Now the next one that I want is a shadow just underneath the header. So that one will be an outset or regular. And we'll go up into our header, box shadow, and we're going to do 0 pix, 6 pix, 10 pix, and -5 pix. And of course, we'll just do black to make it simple. Save. Let's go check it out. Okay, so you can see we've got it over the content area. But for some reason, it's not going over the table of contents area. And the reason that is for the Z index. Not entirely sure why the table of contents is being applied over the top of header. But if we go into our rule and just pop out our header a little bit on the Z index, and I'll just throw in 99. Hit save. You'll see that it pops over the top of that table of contents. Bam. There it is. That's it for styling. The only last thing we need to do now is just get a little bit of styling for our table here. So we've got some borders and padding. And then our markdown will be able to render tables a little nicer. So a little bit of CSS for the tables. We're going to do border width, colon, 1 pix at the top, 0 pix at the right, 0 pix at the bottom, and 1 pix at the left. And then border style, solid. And then border color, black. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Oh, and border spacing too. Border spacing is 0. Otherwise you get those double bars. All right. I'm going to copy these lines and bring them into the cells, and we're just going to change where the borders are applied. And we're going to do 1 pix on the right, 1 pix on the bottom, and then 0 pix on the left, 0 pix on the top. And that should be it. There it is. Oh, padding. I'm going to add a little bit of padding. Just a little bit of padding to give it room to breathe. All right. Cool. Well, that's it. Now it looks a little prettier, but not bad. Not bad. We'll see you guys later.